Okay, so what we are going to do now is talk about triangular prisms. So a triangular prism is really similar to a rectangular prism. Instead of the edges being rectangles or squares, they are triangles. So it looks like these two examples. And the net would look something like this or like this. Again, there's two opposite triangles this time on each side. And instead of 4 main pieces, we have 3 main pieces. So all folded up together, it would look like this. So it's just 2 triangles connected by these long rectangular sides. Okay, so just as a little note, we want to remember that there's going to be 3, most of the time, different rectangles. 3 different rectangles. And this is because the triangles on the end could have different lengths for all 3 sides. So we want to go into it when finding surface area, just assuming that all of these 3 rectangles are going to be different. Because notice this rectangle will line up with the base of this one. But when I fold this side up, it will match with this side of the rectangle or triangle, which could be different. And then lastly, when I fold up this last rectangular piece, it goes with the other side of the triangle. See how there's 3 sides there that all match up with the different sides of the rectangles. So you want to make sure that you think about these 3 rectangle pieces as different. And then there are 2 congruent, which means equal, triangles. The triangles will always be the same because they're across from each other, so they have to make sure that they line up. So now let's go into an example of how to find the area for these. So if I'm looking at the surface area of these. So if I'm looking at number 1, okay, you know me, I like to color code, and I'm going to make my triangles the same color because they're the same. Okay, but then notice these are different. Okay, so I'm going to make this one pink, this one blue, just to show that they're different. And this last one, yellow. Okay, so now I have the triangles here. Okay, I look for my right angle. There it is. So that tells me that I'm going to use this as my base and this as my height, or the other way around. Okay, so I'm going to set up. Here is my green shape, which are the triangles. And I'm going to do 9 times 19 times 1/2, which is the same thing as dividing by 2. And when I do that, 9 times 19, 9 times 19 times 1/2 or 0.5, I get 85.5. But there's 2 of them, right? Because I have 2 triangles. So I multiply it by 2 to get a total of 171 for my green shapes. Okay? And then here, I'll just move on to the pink shape. I look at the information that I have, and I notice here my base is 19 and my height is 27. And since it's just a rectangle, to find the area of the rectangle, I just do base times height. So 19 times 27, which gives me 513. Okay, then I go into my blue one. I'm gonna use a different pen for this one. My base is 9 here, but my height is still going to be 27, so it carries across. So 9 times 27, that would give me 243. And then my last one is yellow. Now remember, we want to just assume that they're all different. But as you can see, it gives me the base here, which is 19, and 27 is my height. So these two are actually the same. You just have to make sure that you use the information. So I have 19 times 27 again, which I know is 513. Then I'll take a second, add all these numbers up. Those are all of my shapes that make up this triangular prism. And when I add them up, I get 1,440. Doesn't give me a unit, so I use units squared, U squared. Okay? So now let's flip over to the back. This one is my favorite because it's made up of, it's a square pyramid. So it looks like this, okay? There's a square on the bottom, and each of these triangles fold up to meet at the top. Now these are like the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. The famous Egyptian pyramids. So this is what they're really look like. Okay, so we want to write down information that they have one square as its base, and remember, on a square, all sides are equal. All sides are equal. And then there's now, instead of 2 congruent triangles like the other one, there's 4 congruent or same triangles, because they all have to meet up at the top in order to close the pyramid. So now here, let's look at number 1. Susan is painting the outside of a square pyramid. The net for the pyramid is shown. What is the surface area of the pyramid? So my square is there. That's one shape. But I can color the rest of these the same color, because remember, they all have to meet up in the middle to close the pyramid. So it looks like that, okay? So now what I do, I find the area of the square. Let's just start there. Okay. So the area of the square, I know my base is 6. It tells me right here. And my height is 6. So I just have 6 times 6 equals 36 centimeters squared. This time it gives us a unit. Okay. Then I move on to my triangles. And I find the area of a triangle by doing base times height times 1/2, or 1/2 times base times height. Remember, order doesn't matter in multiplication. So here I have 6 times 12.5 times 0.5. Don't forget, because it is a triangle. So when I multiply those together, 6 times 12.5 times 0.5 gives me 37.5. But I don't just have one pink triangle, I have 4 of them. So I need to do times 4. So 37.5 times 4 gives me 150 centimeters squared. So I add up these two values, which gives me 186 centimeters squared total as the surface area.